I have a number of advantages having started in the business during the last downturn, as compared to people who maybe got involved with the business towards the higher points in the market. First of all, my team was completely put together between 1989 and 1996. Of those executives who were with the company in January '89 when I arrived, only one was with the company within 24 months after my arrival, and that was my chief financial officer. Everybody else joined the company from a time when operating the properties well, servicing tenants, leasing space, collecting rent was the paramount important thing to do, as opposed to, I think, most other people in the top half of the cycle who really thought financial engineering was the great skill set. Number one. Number two, I learned the importance of relationships. Relationships are critical. Relationships with brokers, relationships with tenants, relationships with lenders. I think most people thought that relationships with purchase and sales brokers were the important relationships, whereas for us, really the relationships which are critical with leasing brokers and tenants. And the relationships with lenders led me to stick with our balance sheet relationships. Balance sheet life insurance companies, pension funds, banks, and not do any investment bank CMBS originated financing. I think there will always be innovation out of the investment banking environment. But I think that as far as relationships go, the ones that are with the balance sheet lenders are the ones that are the most important. The biggest challenge with the energy efficiency retrofits that we have started at the Empire State Building and are rolling out through our portfolio was that it had never been done before. Challenge number two actually turns out to be education. We need to educate not just tenants, but architects and engineers as to what energy consumption and energy conservation look like. When you come into one of our buildings which has had an energy efficiency retrofit, you don't see a darker building, a building that's hotter in the summer, colder in the winter, has fewer elevators operating. There's no distinguishable difference whatsoever. A lot of people don't expect that. And if you go to one of the floors that's been retrofit with either a LEED, silver, or platinum tenant interior, I think a lot of people expect to see a compromise in function. There's no compromise in function whatsoever. In the case of Skanska at the Empire State Building, which is a LEED Platinum interior certification that they have recently achieved, been awarded, they actually designed their space to consume about 2.5 watts a square foot of electricity. They're presently consuming about 1.65 watts a square foot for electricity. This is a normal office. Lots of computers, lots of drafting, lots of office equipment. But their engineers actually designed the distribution in the space for 7.5 watts of consumption per square foot. And the lawyers required 7.5 watts of electricity in the lease. Now, lawyers and mechanical engineers are behind the curve here. They're not aware of what can be done. They're not aware of what is possible. The problem is that if you have every tenant using 1.65 watts a square foot, but demanding 7.5 watts in their lease, you're building out an infrastructure for electricity distribution, not just within your building, but within the urban environment and within the power generation structure, which greatly outpaces actual demand. And it distorts it. It's a bad use of money. It's a bad use of investment. I think that the greatest challenge that we have confronted in taking our pre-war portfolio and rebranding it as a pre-war trophy portfolio was the perception, has been, really was, because I think we've gotten over it in the marketplace, that these buildings are obsolete. Obsolescence has to do with lack of maintenance, has to do with lack of function in tenant spaces. Most of that has to do with maintenance, with building systems. But if you run buildings very well and you keep them upgraded and you keep the systems in good shape, and you supply the tenants with what they need in the way of building systems, what you find is that these pre-war buildings, as an example, offer a lot of the attributes for which many tenants are looking. Greater window to interior space ratio. There's far less deep space. Everyone was looking for very large column-free floors. So that's great if you're operating in a trading environment. But if you're operating in an environment with a lot of smaller work areas, being deep 15 feet from the window is one thing. Being 50 feet from a window is another thing. It really changes things a lot. And these very large floor buildings work best for very large single floor tenants. But they become very inefficient, either for multi-tenanting or for tenants that have many different functions over the same floor plate, because the building systems aren't designed for them.